Okay, ready to dive into some seriously mind-bending stuff.
Always up for a challenge.
Today, we're looking at AI in politics. You know, could robots actually replace our elected officials?
Yeah, and it's a topic that's getting a lot of people talking, which is understandable. I mean, this technology could totally change how our political systems work, but of course it comes with its own set of worries.
Big time. And we've got a whole pile of research to go through, articles, studies, news clips.
Trying to figure out what it all means for democracy as we know it.
Exactly. What's interesting is this isn't just some far-off future scenario.
It's already happening.
Yeah, the people have heard about like social media algorithms and how they, kind of mess with what we see online. But did you know that there are AI politicians like actually running for office right now?
It's true. We've seen it in a few countries. There's Sam, for example, an AI candidate.
Sam.
Yeah, it ran for office in New Zealand. And get this, Sam was designed to actually learn from talking to voters.
So people could like actually have conversations with this AI and ask it about its policies.
Exactly. And give feedback, too.
Wow. So it's like having a candidate that can constantly change and adapt based on what people are saying. That's both kind of cool and a little freaky, don't you think?
It definitely brings up some whole interesting questions, like how can we be sure an AI politician, like Sam, is really representing what the people want, not just like the biases of whoever programmed it or the data it's trained on.
That's a huge question.
Yeah.
And it's not just like a theoretical thing either.
Yeah.
Remember that AI politician that was built using OpenAI's tech?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
There was a whole controversy, right?
Yeah, OpenAI actually ended up banning it from running for mayor in a U.S. election.
Wild.
Their argument was that it was against their rules because the AI was doing political campaigning.
I see. So it was like a violation of their terms of service.
Yeah, basically.
That whole thing really showed just how complicated this all is. It's like we're writing the rules as we go. Ethically, legally, it's all uncharted territory.
And it gets even more complicated when you think about how AI is already shaping political discussions and even influencing elections, even without, AI politicians actually running.
Right. I was reading Yuval Noah Harari, the Sapiens guy. He makes a really strong case about how those social media algorithms are already shaping our political views.
Yeah.
And maybe even swaying our votes without us even realizing it.
Right. His point is that these algorithms are designed to keep us glued to our screens, right?
Wow.
And they do that by feeding us stuff that we already agree with. So, we end up in these echo chambers.
Echo chambers.
Yeah, where we only see information that backs up what we already believe.
Yeah.
Which, makes it way harder to actually have real conversations about politics and see things from other people's point of view.
It's like the algorithm is making a little, like, personalized bubble for each of us, right?
Yeah.
And we don't even realize how much it's affecting how we see the world. It makes you wonder, are we really making our own choices or are we being like nudged in a certain direction?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is unsettling. And it's not just about our own choices either. These algorithms can really change the whole political landscape. They can make certain voices louder while others get drowned out. And they can, help spread misinformation, even fake news.
So even if we don't end up with robots running our governments, AI is already having a huge impact on how our democracies work. But hey, it's not all bad news, right? There's got to be some upside to using AI in politics, right?
Oh, absolutely. One of the strongest arguments for it is that AI could make things way more efficient, especially when it comes to decision making. Imagine an AI that can analyze tons of data, like economic trends, public opinion polls, scientific research, and then use all that to help politicians make smarter choices.
That's amazing. So instead of relying on like gut feelings or political maneuvering, our leaders could actually base their decisions on real data and evidence.
Exactly. And, AI can process information so much faster than we can. They could help governments respond to crises like way more quickly. They could make sure resources are being used where they're most needed. And they can even spot patterns and trends that humans might miss.
So AI could be like this super-powered advisor, helping politicians see the bigger picture and make decisions that are, really in the best interests of the people they represent.
That's the hope. And some people even think AI could help reduce bias and corruption in politics.
Really? How's that?
Well, unlike human politicians, AI isn't swayed by, the same kinds of pressures. They don't have their own interests to protect. They don't take campaign donations. And you can't bribe them or influence them with lobbyists.
Right. So in theory, AI could make things fairer, right?
Right.
And make sure that decisions are based on what's good for everyone, not just some special interest group or a powerful individual.
Exactly. And some even believe AI could help us plan for the long term, like tackling things like climate change and poverty. They can analyze data, model different scenarios, and help us understand the consequences of our actions so we can make choices that are more sustainable, for the future.
It's starting to sound like AI could be the answer to all our political problems.
Hmm.
But I have a feeling it's not that simple, is it?
Hmm. You're right to be a little skeptical. These potential benefits are exciting for sure, but we can't just ignore the risks. In fact, some of the biggest questions are about how to minimize those risks and make sure AI is used ethically and responsibly.
Yeah, it's easy to get swept up in all the possibilities, but we got to be real about the downsides too. Like, it feels like walking a tightrope,
Okay.
you know, balancing the amazing things AI could do with the potential for things to go wrong.
Oh, it's a delicate balance for sure. And one of the biggest concerns is that AI could actually make existing biases in our political systems even worse.
Right, right. We talked about that a little earlier. Like, if the data used to train the AI is biased, then the AI itself will be biased too. But how does that actually, like, play out in real life? Can you give me an example?
Sure. Let's say we're using an AI to help decide, who's eligible for parole. And let's imagine that the data used to train this AI comes from past parole decisions. Decisions that, as we know, have been affected by, racial bias in the justice system.
Okay, so if that data shows that black prisoners were given parole less often than white prisoners, even if everything else about their cases was similar, then the AI might learn to connect black prisoners with a higher risk of reoffending, even if that's not actually true.
Exactly. And that could lead to the AI recommending parole for white prisoners more often, even if their situations are pretty much the same. So basically, the AI would just be continuing the biases that we're trying to get rid of.
That's really worrying. It seems like it'd be almost impossible to completely get rid of bias from these AI systems, even if we know it's a problem.
It's a huge challenge, no doubt. And it's one of the main reasons why people are demanding more transparency. Like we need to be able to see how these AI systems work, what data they're using, how they're making their decisions. Accountability, too, right?
So how do we actually fix this? What can we do to make sure these AI systems are being used fairly?
One really important step is to make sure the data itself is diverse. It needs to represent everyone it's being used to make decisions about. We have to really try hard to include data from marginalized communities so their voices and experiences are part of how the AI makes decisions.
That makes sense. But that seems like only the first step. What about the algorithms themselves? Can't they be biased even if the data is perfect?
You're absolutely right. The algorithms themselves can introduce bias, even with perfectly balanced data, because, algorithms are really just sets of rules, instructions that tell the AI how to process information and make choices. And those rules can reflect the biases of whoever wrote them.
I see. So even if we're super careful with the data, we still need to make sure that the people designing these algorithms are aware of their own biases and trying to prevent them from affecting the AI. Seems like you would need constant checking and oversight, right?
It does, and that's why a lot of experts are pushing for what they call human-centered AI. It's a whole way of designing AI that puts human values and oversight at the center of it all.
Okay, so let's break down this human-centered AI thing. What does it actually look like in practice?
Well, it involves a few key things. First, transparency. We need to be able to understand how these AI systems work, what data they're using, how they're reaching their conclusions.
So no more of those black box algorithms where we just have to trust the AI is doing the right thing without knowing how it's getting there.
Right. We need to be able to look under the hood. And if we can't understand how an AI is working, we shouldn't be using it to make decisions that affect people's lives, especially in politics.
Yeah, it seems pretty obvious. What else is part of this human-centered approach?
Accountability is another big one. If an AI screws up or causes harm, there needs to be a way to figure out who's responsible and hold them accountable.
So it's not just about the tech itself, but the people and institutions behind it.
Exactly. Clear lines of responsibility. And ways to address any harm caused by AI, whether it was intentional or not.
That's super important, especially with something as, well, as sensitive as politics, where decisions can have such huge consequences.
Absolutely. And lastly, human-centered AI really emphasizes human oversight. Humans need to be in control of these AI systems. We can't just hand over all the decision-making power to algorithms.
So it's about using AI as a tool to help humans, not to completely replace them.
Precisely. AI can gather data, analyze information, give us insights, but the final decisions, those should be made by humans who can take everything into account. The ethical stuff, social values, how it will affect people's lives.
That makes a lot of sense. Finding the right balance. Using the power of AI, but keeping human judgment and intuition in the driver's seat. Wow, we've really covered a lot in this deep dive, from AI politicians to algorithmic bias and that whole human-centered AI concept. I mean, it's pretty clear that this technology could really change the way our political systems work. So where do we go from here? We've talked about the good and the bad, but what can we actually do to make sure AI is used responsibly in politics?
Well, the first thing is to educate ourselves. The more we understand about AI, how it works, what it can do, the better we'll be able to, navigate this whole thing.
For sure. But honestly, it can feel a little overwhelming sometimes, like, where do you even begin?
Yeah, I get it. It can be a lot. But there are tons of resources out there. Read articles, books, listen to podcasts like this one, watch documentaries.
Right. And don't forget, talking to people, friends, family, colleagues, the more we talk about this stuff, the more awareness we raise and the better chance we have of, actually shaping the future of AI in politics. We have to hold our elected officials accountable, ask them the tough questions about how they're dealing with this AI stuff, make sure they're listening to our concerns.
Absolutely. Contact your representatives, go to town hall meetings, participate in public forums. There are so many ways to make your voice heard.
And of course, voting is huge. Make sure you know where the candidates stand on AI and how it should be used in government.
Exactly. Your vote is powerful. Use it to create the future you want.
Thanks for joining us on this journey. And remember, the future of AI is not set in stone. It's up to all of us to shape it.